My friends, I'm on to the second instrument that Michael has brought for me to work on. Caleb's been working on a couple other ones, by the way, just so you know, and you'll get to see all these in the videos here. But this one is a Les Paul Jr. And that's what she looks like. And just like Senior, it's got a broken neck. You've heard so much about the necks breaking on these Les Paul instruments, these Gibson instruments. And you know, there's all kinds of theories and all kinds of stuff about it. But you know, the bottom line is it's pretty simple why they break. You know, and I'm using this as my neck here. So like here's the neck, and then the peg head comes down like so. Well, it's one piece of wood, and so really right through here, the grain just is a straight grain right through here. And so if this falls over and bangs hard with the, you know, string tension on it, it breaks right on that growth ring, basically is what it amounts to. It's just a growth ring across there, and that's why they break so easy. That's not exactly what's wrong with this one, though. This one didn't break quite like that. This one broke almost straight across, almost vertically. I would say this one had a very traumatic break. You know, I don't know the reason what happened to this, and I doubt you do either, right, Michael? Michael doesn't know either. But my bet is, and this is just a bet, that this thing was either just laying flat like this and somebody actually stepped on the head here, or it fell over backwards really hard, and it broke it off that way. Or it got actually crushed between something. I mean, like something heavy, really heavy, and just broke it right off. Because it's a traumatic break. This is not the easy, simple, just break right on the grain line. This broke across the grain line, everything. That takes a lot of force. I mean, a lot of force. So it was a very traumatic experience and a really bad day for this guitar that day when this broke. I can tell you for sure. That part I know absolutely 100%. What I don't know 100% is how we're going to fix it, but I think we're going to try a double spline right down through this, because there's not a lot to glue to, because it's a straight break, right? I mean, like you're gluing in grain to in grain. That never glues well. They've already glued it too, and I'm not going to break their joint. I'm just going to spline down through both sides of the truss rod, put pieces of wood in there that I think are really solid, and that's probably going to be maple, because maple's really hard to break, and if we get the right grain of maple in there, it'll hold it, I believe. And so that's where we're headed. Let's get to it. Okay, I've taken the bridge off and the strings off, and I have it turned over, and now I'm going to take these tuning keys off. I'm going to do that off camera as well. I've got the guitar stripped down here to the bare essentials, and the difficult question is, how do you route accurately to, you know, nice trenches in here to fill them with splines or whatever? So, I mean, you know, you could do a lot of things and cut two slots here, but my key word is accurately. You know, I want to make sure that they're the same width all the way down, you know, good depth and all that, but mostly that they're the same width, so that when I put a spline in there, that the spline will be tight all the way down in there and do a real good job of reinforcing it. That's a tough one. And I'm going to have to give it a little bit of thought, but I'll show you what I come up with. You know, my first thought is to bridge it, I'll just tell you that, and bridging it is okay, you know, and take a router bit and stick it down in there, but the problem with that is that, you know, first of all, if you got a very big router, it's going to hit this as you slide back this way. It's not going to go very far that way, and then additionally, your bit is at one depth, and it's going to cut way deeper up here and way deeper here, but nothing right in here. So, you know, it's just not simple. It's not a simple way to do it. So I'll come up with something, and I'll show you what I come up with. Well, this is going to be a tricky fix. I gotta just be honest with you. It's not simple. I can't think of a good mechanical way to do it and make it accurate. You know, I could probably do it on a milling machine, but man, the setup time and the trouble to go to all that, it would make the cost so expensive. I think I'm going to try it this way. Boy, I don't know. It could be a mistake, but I'm going to give it a shot. What I'm doing is I'm lining up this ruler along the inside edge of where the tuning keys went. I can see that, and that gives me a kind of a reference line. I've got an 11-inch mark right on this little label that goes across here, and so I kind of knows where I'm at here, so I can make the same length cut on both sides. And I'm just going to by the seat of my pants, decide that I'm going to start right here at the 7-inch line, and I'm going to scribe right straight down this ruler all the way to the 11-inch. It needs to be pretty big, I think, to make this work. This gives me my first straight line. I'm going to scribe it several times and this is a brand new X-Acto blade. And the finish is really hard on this, unfortunately. And that X-Acto blade the tip of it's already bent. That's not making it any easier. So, the good Dr. Kelly has sent us scalpel blades. I'll get hooked up there with my scalpel blades and I'll try this again. Maybe they'll work better. Well, I think I'm back on my mark and I've got my scalpel and I'm going to try that. Yeah, you have to cut it a bunch of times to get through the finish. And I really want to get through the finish if I can, because I'm going to lose my reference point if I don't. Yeah, because as soon as I start routing this out, that line's going to disappear on me. I got that one done. I'm going to go to the other side now and try to do the same thing. I put my deal on the 11-inch mark and I've lined it up with the tuning keys again, and I'll start at 7 and go to 11. Okay, I got both of those marked pretty well. Now the question is, how wide do I make the spline? Those are the two outside edges. And now I'm going to have to come back in here and parallel those lines. And I think I'm just going to do it by eye, because I don't really have a good reference point, and I can tell that I'm pretty parallel there, and that's kind of the only thing I've got to go on, is just if I'm parallel. Okay, got that one marked. Now I'll mark the other one. I'm kind of working left-handed that way, so I'm going to turn this around. Again, I'm just going by eye and I'm just picking up what I think is parallel there. Okay, I've got two sets of parallel lines, one on this side, one on this side, and I'm going to just route a groove down through there. And how am I going to do that? Well, I've done it on camera before. I'm going to do it by hand, because honestly there's just no good easy way to set up a jig or a fixture that would be simple enough to do it in an economical way, if that makes any sense to you. Because I mean, I could do it with a jig and a fixture and all that, but it would take a long time to build a jig and a fixture that would work efficiently enough And even then, it would still need some handwork. So I'm just gonna skip by all that and just do it by hand. I'm gonna start this direction because I think it'll be easier for me, because this steep coming down here is really difficult. So I can work flat here and this will work real well. And I might do both sides on this, on the flat, because I can slide my hand along this and kind of steady myself, I think. Here we go. I don't know how well you can see that, but it's, you know, pretty darn straight line. Looks to be fairly parallel. I'm sure it's not perfect. It's only 200 thousandths inch of an inch deep, I think. I don't think it's any deeper than that. Let me just see if I can measure that for you. I'm sure the depth on this is going to be very irregular, but in the deepest place here, it's only, oops. They work better when you turn them on. In the deepest place here, it's, well, it's 250 thousandths, so a little deeper than I thought in the deepest place. In these average places here, it's probably only 200. That's actually 173, and that's 190. So, yeah, there's all that to deal with. I think I'm going to try to chisel this a little bit and see how that goes for a second or two, and see if that's going to work, or if I need to just keep doing it with the Dremel. I know chiseling it will straighten it out a lot. Actually, it looks pretty straight already, so I've got it fairly straight. Yeah, when I look down at it, it looks real straight too. So I think we're pretty good straight-wise. Just cleaning up the sides a little bit here. I think we're going to have to go deeper though to make it really be functional. Some of you are screaming at your television screen saying, you know, you don't want to put maple in there, you want to put mahogany in there because it's a mahogany neck. And this is where it pays to understand the properties of wood. You know, mahogany is a good choice for necks overall. It is fairly strong and pretty light, and it's easy to carve. So that's why they use it in necks. It's those three reasons primarily. But when it comes to strength, overall strength, mahogany really isn't as strong as most other woods. Mahogany is fairly brittle, fairly soft. And so to fill this with mahogany, you really aren't helping yourself all that much. That's where we're going to use maple. Maple's really hard and really strong. And I would say perhaps 3 times stronger than the mahogany is. But that's the reason I'm going to use the maple. Again, some of you are probably saying, but it won't match, it won't look good. Well, looks don't matter at all if it don't work. You know. So we'll worry about the looks after we make it work, after we make it functional. What was it they used to say? Form follows function. So we got to make it function first, and then the form will take its shape. And kind of wish I had made that slot just a hair wider. I could use my chisel there, but I think I have other choices. And the last one I choose is it. I had 4 chisels there in that holder, and the last one I pulled out is the one I was looking for. The chisel actually, now that I've got the groove, is actually cutting the bottom faster than I could probably cut it with the Dremel tool. and definitely cutting it flatter and more accurate. The Dremel tool, though, I think was the right way to go to get my trench started. That looks pretty good. I'm going to do the other one off camera, and I'll show you what it looks like when I get the other one cut. And we may still go deeper yet, but we're getting in the ballpark at least. Well, I got both of them cut with the Dremel tool. As I was telling Michael here, as he's watching me do this, using a Dremel tool in this way, freehand, your results may vary. What you don't see on camera, I mean, you can see me just cutting a trench there, you know, and it looks like that's fairly straightforward, but you don't feel the lateral grabbing. That bit is trying to pull you sideways constantly, and it wants you to pull you outside of your trench, and yeah, it's really difficult to control. It really is. And I think we did okay, though. I don't think we really got outside the line much. Almost did here where the screw holes were, but I was able to control it, and I didn't go any deeper than the screw hole itself, or to the side, I mean. Slightly narrower than the other one because I'm not able to get my chisel down it yet, but I think once I clean up the sides, I'll be able to get my little chisel through it. That looks pretty darn good. Pretty darn good. Little bit of clean up here yet, but I think we're just about ready to start fitting pieces in here. I think that looks about as good as it can for right now. Of course, you know, like everything you do, this is at the ugly duckling stage, meaning that it has to look worse before it's going to look better. And it looks about as bad as it can look right now. Hopefully it'll start looking better here before too long. Well, I've made a couple little blocks of maple, and they're both just a little thicker than the channel is at the moment. I can always run them through my thickness sander. I just wanted to get something here to kind of start giving me something to eyeball across this and see how it's going to look. What I think I'm going to do is take like maybe a piece of cardboard and start scissoring it and just, trying to get the bottom profile of this. And then I can trace that onto these pieces and stick them in here. That's the best I've got. I don't know how else to get the bottom profile of that very well. Yeah, I've got a tool or two that could do that now that I think about it. Yeah, I think I'll try that. I'll try that little special tool for measuring this kind of stuff. Matter of fact, my able-bodied assistant already went and got it. He reads my mind. That's getting scary, because we starting to think alike and stuff. It's really scary. So this here should give me the bottom profile pretty darn exact. So there you go. So now if we trace that onto this, we ought to be pretty darn good. And of course I'm going to trace it, leaving it right down to this bottom edge, because the more I can leave on here the better. Kind of forgot I had this little tool. I used to have one of these years ago and lost it, and just went and bought this recently. So that should work. I'll just nip that off, and then this should fit in this slot here once we get the get it cleaned up and all that. I'm going to probably have to clean up the slot a little bit and work with it back and forth until I get happy with that, and then we'll press it in there and glue that baby in place, and that ought to solve that little problem on this side. So I'll go cut this on the bandsaw, and I'll show you what it looks like here as I work on it a little bit more. Okay, what I've been doing, first of all, I marked the word face on this, meaning that it faces me. That's what it means. And I've straightened out this back wall here so that it's really straight with this. And now I'm, checking this. Like, I can stick it in right here, no problem. It goes in without any problem in the middle, but not on the ends. So the middle is just about perfect. The ends are tight, so I'm taking that all off of this side now, because that's the only way it's going to fit down in there, is if these ends come out to the right size, and they're a little bit narrow. So now it's just about to go in there. I think I've got this end in. I'm a little tight from here up, it looks like. And I'm shaving off just the thinnest amount of shaving I can take off. And you understand, I'm trying not to change the bottom of the pit because that's already been profiled to this. So I'm only doing the sides and the corners, or the, right where the bottom meets the side, which would be I'm calling it the corner, because I don't want it to hold it up. I want it to be square. I think we're just about there, really close. Yeah, it's still a little tight right here. I think I've got this first one fitting in there pretty well. You can see how deep it's going, the spline there. It's going in almost a 1/4 inch, not quite, I would say. Yeah, it's not even that deep. It's about 175 thousandths, something like that. Now you got to keep in mind, this side here is much lower than this other side, so it's going in quite a bit deeper on the other side, I'm sure. And try to give an idea how deep it's going in on the other side. It's probably going in over a 1/4 inch on the other side. So that's just the nature of the beast here, because we're working on a slant. I believe that's it. I don't think we could do it much better than that. It looks like it matches the profile pretty darn well. So, trying to decide if I want to go ahead and glue that one in. I think I will. I don't see any reason not to. I think I can still work on the other one just fine. What I'm going to do, as you've always heard me say, is you make sure you get real good glue coverage. This, especially on something like this is not the place to take a chance. You get one shot at this, and that's the only shot you'll ever get, because it'll probably break in a million pieces if this don't hold. And I'm pretty positive this will hold, but only if it's glued really, really well. So I'm going to coat both surfaces 100%. And another reason you do that is that it will help fill any voids that there are, because you can't make it perfect. You think you can, but you can't. And this will fill all those voids because there's plenty of glue to move around. Now the trick is, can I get her down in there with all the glue? Because that even makes it tighter, and it was already pretty tight. I believe it's in there. And another way I can tell it's all the way in there is by the pencil mark that I made, and it looks like it's bottomed out. Everything is a hammer, by the way. And just for one more bit of, because I can, I'm just going to put a clamp on this. It's really clamped in there tight by itself. I don't need the clamp to hold it. I'm more or less using the clamp to make sure it's forced in there all the way. I think it is, but I'm going to just make sure. It's in such an awkward place, and the nut is exactly across from this, and then it's sliding around on the nut. So this is not working as well as I was hoping it was going to work. But it is putting a lot of pressure on it. I don't see anything moving or squeezing out. Actually, I do see a little bit. I do see just a tiny bit of squeezing it out, so it is moving it a little bit. I think we're good. We don't really need it to hold it. It's down in there, trust me. Wipe off all the extra glue. This gives me another chance to look at the pencil mark, and the pencil mark has disappeared, so that means it's down in there every bit as deep as it ever was, if not deeper. And yes, I could have sawn off a lot of this extra before, but that's of no consequence to me whatsoever. So I can knock that off with finger planes, chisels, Dremel tools, whatever. It's not a big deal. It gives me more room to push on it and tap on it, so I prefer to leave it whole like that. Now we go to the next one, and it should, I think what I'll do is turn it around this way so I can work on this side better. So I'm going to clean this up off camera, and I'll show you what it looks like when I get the cleat made for this one here. Okay, I've got the other slot widened out and cleaned up, and I put my little tool in here to get that profile, and it looks very much like the previous profile. And we'll put this on here and trace around it. And so I'll cut that out. And the difference is here, I better make sure I note the side that faces me, so I'll put face on this side again so I don't mix it up and turn it around the wrong way. So we'll cut that out. I believe we've got the next one fitting up just right too. You can see roughly about how deep it's going in there a little, and we'll just go ahead and fill this in there. And once again, on cue, right on cue on camera, it has to clog. I think there's something in the glue's contract about video that it has to clog on camera. That looks 100% coated on the inside. Now we'll make sure it gets coated on this. Making sure it's bottomed out, and I believe it is. I don't think I showed it a while ago, but you know, in case I didn't show it, I also just took this clamp and just forced it a little bit just to make sure that it's getting to the bottom. That I don't have any surprise voids down in there. This, if for some reason it's not all the way bottomed out, just putting a little bit of force like this with a clamp can really change everything. Doesn't even have to put that much force on it. And I don't see it moving anything. It looks like it's worked really well. Again, they're both sticking up really high, but that's just fine with me. We can clean that off later. I'm going to let those dry for about an hour and a half, 2 hours, and we'll come back and clean that up and fill the other voids, and I don't think this thing will ever break. It's been about 2 hours, and so this glue is well set up, and I'm going to just start knocking off the biggest chunks of this. And the only thing I'm being a little cautious about is watching the way the wood is splitting so that I don't split down into too deep. So they're flying all over the shop here. I'll just knock off the worst of it with the chisel, and then I'll take the finger plane and work it down the rest of the way. It's starting to split the wrong way on me, so I'm going to go the other direction here, and it should be okay. I think that's close enough for the moment, and now I'll switch over to my finger plane and see if I can't take it the rest of the way really fast. Just as an example, if I stopped right there, that would be just about equivalent to how much was sticking out with the aluminum. So At least we'll be able to smooth this down to where you shouldn't even be able to feel it, I don't think, when we're done. I'm going to have to set the plane just a little bit deeper, and I'm going to finish carving this off camera, and I'll show you what it looks like here on the next step. I've cut it down with the finger plane quite a bit. I'm going to go to the rasp now and smooth it down to the last little bit. Now this is just a double cut, small double cut file. Well, there you go. That's smoothed out. It still looks like the ugly duckling at the moment, but we're getting there. I'm going to try to fit these pieces that were missing right here, and they were stuck to the aluminum piece, and they may fit back in here, then again they may not, because they have a lot of glue and epoxy on them. So here they are. Let's see if I can figure out how they go. I think they go like this. Yep, I think they will fit, actually. At least it'll fill up most of the area. It won't fill it up entirely, but it'll do all right. So let's go ahead and get the glue on these things. And right on cue, the glue bot has froze up yet again. That worked real well. It drove it right down in there. I've got one more piece to fit in, and I think it'll fit in too. No guarantees on this one. They both fit in there really, really well, actually. Now there's still holes there, partly from those screws that the fellow put in. But anyway, it's pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and just start sanding this area, cleaning it up while that glue is setting there. Those are jammed in there pretty tight. I don't think they're going to come out and don't really need any clamping or anything. So I think it leaves me free to go ahead and sand this smooth and clean this up. Well, you may notice that I took off the sticker that was here, and I don't know if you noticed the price on that. That was $39.95, and you think, well, that couldn't be the right price for this, but actually, you're right, it wasn't the right price. He only paid $35 for it. In this condition, of course. So, anyway, I'm going to go ahead and start my sanding now that I've got that cleaned off. I'm going to start with just some 3M150. This is not the really good sandpaper, but that's okay. We got to use this stuff up too, so we'll just use it right here. It's a good spot to start with it. It's pretty rough. The brake was really rough, and all the repair that went around it here is jagged, so we're going to sand it down pretty good and bring it back, and I think it'll be fine. In fact, I might even go to a scraper, thinking about it, to possibly scrape off some of the finish and put it back, because it's pretty chipped up anyway. But we'll see what the sandpaper does first. This sandpaper is loading up pretty good, partly because it is some finish in glue and different things. There's the difference in this kind of sandpaper. This old sandpaper, it loads up really bad. Okay, I'm going to fill these voids with CA glue, I think. And this is the medium thickness, or, well, actually, it's extra thick, it says. So I'm going to fill the voids, these holes down in here, and these cracks. And I'll give this about 3 or 4 minutes or so to set up, and then I'll hit it with the accelerator. Just trying to fill all of the gouges and holes and miscellaneous, because we're going to stain this black and repaint it, or respray it I should say, with lacquer, and I think it'll be almost invisible. Well, this is really burning my eyes, I can tell you for sure. I'm very sensitive to the sea igloo stuff, and it's really burning. Yeah, some people use this for a whole finish. Not me. It would kill me. Just this much of it is more than I can handle. I think that kind of fills in all the holes. Hopefully it won't sink down in there too much. And I'll show you what that looks like when I hit it with the accelerator. This has been sitting about a minute or so, and I think that's long enough to hit it with the accelerator. The reason I wait a little bit is because that'll keep it from bubbling. If you hit it too soon, it'll bubble and turn white and all kinds of weird stuff. But if you don't hit it, it takes forever for it to cure. And I don't have forever. And I'm just using it as a filler anyway for the most part. I know it doesn't look like that could go invisible, but I kind of think it will. I think it's going to go nearly invisible when we're done. You'll probably be able to tell it, but only upon fairly close inspection. I think it's starting to cure pretty well. The overspray of the accelerator makes the finish a little tacky, and that's now starting to firm up. Give it a couple more minutes and then we'll make it smooth. Okay, I think this is cured enough that I can hit it with the file and smooth this out. At least I hope it is. Well, quite honestly, it's a little green. It's sticking to my file. So I might be rushing it a little bit. But I'm trying to get this done in a timely fashion. We've got some of this 180, and this is the 3M Pro grade sandpaper. This stuff here is way better. I'm hoping it won't stick to this, although it might, because this is still a little bit on the green side. It's not cured. It's just, it's firm, but that's about as good as I can tell you it is right now. But I don't think it sticks to this, and it still doesn't. See, you can wipe it right off. Big difference, big difference. I'm just trying to get it down to a level that I think we can dye it and coat it, clear coat it. You can get this at Lowe's, and it's really, it's sold anywhere. It's this, again, it's the 3M. I'll show you a picture of it up close. That's the kind you want to get. No slip grip, lasts longer. I think on the package it says something about being pro. Here's the actual package. Let you read that there. Anyway, very good stuff. Way better than anything prior, and there's really nothing that compares to it. And when you do as much sanding as I do, that really makes a lot of difference. I'm going to go to these little holders, these rubber holders. That's going to work better on this curved surface. You can feel very little of it now. This sandpaper is a little bit rough, this 180. So I'll go to a 220 here in just a moment. I got a little bit more 180 to do,
put a fresh piece on, and then I'll be at the 220, and that'll be good enough, I think. I think I'm going to go to 400 or 320 at least, because it's still a little rough feeling. Here's some 320. There you go. Still kind of looks ugly. It probably looks like it's still real rough, but now it's actually very, very slick. I mean, I'm not gonna lie and tell you you can't feel anything, but you can barely feel anything. It feels pretty darn good. And it sure beats a big old piece of aluminum hanging there, I can tell you that. What I try to do is balance out time and effort and money, all that stuff. I don't want to spend inordinate amount of time on this. I want to try to get it as good as I can get it for the, time spent without overdoing it. I mean, if I spend another 2 hours on this, I could get it perfect. But is it warrant another 2 hours? That's a pretty high expense. So I think that's pretty good. Little bit right there. I wish I didn't feel that, but just a minor thing. But if it didn't feel it, it wouldn't be there at all. So let's stain it and see what it looks like. I'm not sure why I even bother putting the glove on, because just opening the bottle, you can see what it did to me already. So anyway, like I say, it is what it is. Get a little black dye on this towel and rub it on here. And it instantly looks better. It don't look perfect, and just because it can, the white wood isn't taking the dye as well as it should. Typically that white wood takes the dye really well, actually. But honestly, you'll get a different reaction every time you do something with everything you do with finish. I mean, it's like you think, okay, I got this figured out. I know how this works now. And I guarantee you, the next time you do it, it'll work different. And that's pretty much a black and white guarantee when you think you know something about finish. And those of you that do know something about finish know what I'm saying. It works like that. So I'm putting it on, smattering it on here a little bit heavy with the brush to try to cover it up a little bit better. I see two little tiny divots that they show up when you put the finish on, or put the stain on like that. So I think I'm going to try to fill those really quick with just a teeny bit of this wood filler. And then sand it again, and it just makes a nicer looking job. You just don't have that stuff there to deal with. Because your eye always gets drawn to a flaw. And so if there's a flaw there that you can fill, and just tiny little flaws. So we'll just fill them. And when we put the finish over it, then you won't see those little tiny flaws. I think that's going to work. I'm going to do a little bit of cleanup just before I spray it, meaning that I'm going to take a scraper and scrape the binding and clean a little bit of over where the black has slipped down a little bit. But then we'll spray it, and I think we'll be ready for stringing it up in the first thing in the morning. Okay, I think it's just about ready to spray. I'm going to clean this up a little bit where the black has gotten up here. Okay, I think we may be ready. I don't think I need to do too much to tape it off or anything, because I'll be spraying from the back side forward, and for the most part nothing's going to get sprayed on, but I'll just play it a little bit cautious and put a little bit of tape on here. So I'm not going to show it, but I'm just going to take a rattle can of lacquer and spray this, and I'm just going to step outside and do that. Well, it's the next morning, my friends, and I have actually put quite a few coats of lacquer on this. Now, you know, it's not perfect, but in 18 hours, you can't expect a perfect finish when it takes me typically 2 or 3 weeks to get a halfway decent finish. So, you know, this is going to be okay, I think. Certainly a lot better than the big chunk of aluminum and screws and everything that were on here. You know, and if it's important to the customer, he can always take a rattle can of lacquer and spray some more over here over the next couple of weeks or whatever, and, you know, just lightly buff it and, you know, add more to it. But actually, it's not too bad. And I think I can buff this out and it's going to be halfway decent even as it is. So let's get the tape off here and start cleaning this up. It's got a couple of little tiny bumps in it. I wish it didn't have that, otherwise it wouldn't be too bad. Because those bumps are there, I'm going to lightly sand try to hit the bumps, just to get rid of them. Very difficult to do. My goal is to smooth it out without sanding through it anywhere, and that's difficult to do with only, I've probably got close to a dozen coats of lacquer on this, but lacquer goes on incredibly thin, and a dozen coats is like 1 coat of polyurethane. Doesn't feel too bad. Very, very lightly sanding it. I'm trying not to go through anywhere. Just trying to get rid of the things you can feel. It's not too bad. It just, you know, you always want better. I don't care how good your finish turns out, you always want better. Alright, I'm going to take some fine steel wool and buff it out a little bit. It's even obviously a little green to even be doing this. It would be nice if it was set for 4 or 5 days before this finish work like this, the sanding and all that was done, because the finish needs to cure and harden, and obviously it hasn't had time to do that. But I think we can still make it look halfway decent. I think I'm going to put the Renaissance wax on it. That almost instantly cures it a little bit more, makes it feel a little bit better. If he decides to put more finish on it later, you can always lightly sand it first and then refinish it. Well, it's certainly not perfect. Wouldn't try to tell you it is, but on the other hand, for as quick as we did it, that's about as good as you'll ever do. You know, considering that big chunk of aluminum and screws and all that, that's the way it was yesterday. Well, today it looks like that, so that's not too bad of a change. You can sort of feel a little bit of, but that's mostly roughness in the finish. You can feel a little bit, but just only a very little bit. So let's clean it up and get the tuning keys back on it. I'm going to go ahead and lightly just take the steel wool to the front of the peg head here just to clean it up, make it all kind of match. That makes it look nice. You can feel a difference in the finish almost instantly when you put the wax on. It just feels a little harder or a little more cured. It doesn't do a whole lot, but you can definitely feel a difference. I noticed here this nut has been glued in and there's a bunch of glue here right at the nut. I'm going to clean that up. In fact, I think I'm just going to go to chisel to clean that up because there's quite a bit of it. And it looks like there's quite a bit of glue right here too, so it kind of got smeared around a little bit. At least that's what it looks like. I'm going to see if it peels off. I'm peeling off the heavier parts of it anyway. Sometimes you got to know when to leave well enough alone, and that's about as good as I think I can do with that without going into major surgery. So, well, let's put it back together. I'll put the hardware back on it, and we'll talk to the customer, see if he wants it strung up or how we want to do it, and we'll go on from there. Well, my friends, I moved ahead a little bit, and I got this all strung up. I did a light fret job on it, cleaned up the fretboard a little bit. I, got the tuning keys, of course, on it and got it all tuned up. The intonation on this puppy was way off. I mean, like way off. These screws back here, you can probably see these little screws sticking out right here. They were all the way in, which pushed the bridge all the way back. And yeah, there's almost, I said a 1/16 of an inch, but there's almost an 1/8 of an inch of the screw sticking out now, and there was no screw sticking out before. So they, and not only that's bad, but that makes the bridge itself kind of teeter because those screws are all the way in and they're sitting, so the whole bridge is just sitting on the tips of those screws. And so that bridge was cocked way up like this, which isn't good either. Anyway, I adjusted that intonation and it's absolutely spot on perfect now. And it plays really easy. I don't know if you can hear it. There's a bass amp way over there. So, I don't know if you can see what I'm doing, but plays really easy. So I think Michael's going to be happy with this now, and his $35 guitar. Of course, it costs a little bit more than that now because I spent quite a bit of time on it, unfortunately. But we did get it fixed up for him, and I think it'll last forever.
Yeah.
How was your couple days here, Michael? How do you feel about it?
Very well. The rental retreat is a beautiful place to stay. I highly recommend it. Even if you're not going to have a guitar worked on, I highly recommend coming to here. And it's a very nice, clean place. It's quiet here too. There's no
It's quiet except for right now. It sounds like a freight train coming through because it's raining so hard. It's
That's
raining. It is pouring down outside. So you can probably hear that on the video. Sorry.
Yeah, I really like my stay here. We got to see Jerry and Caleb working on things, so it's been very good. Very good. I highly recommend coming.
And Michael's been a real fun guy to have in the shop. We've been talking, and we went out to pizza last night, and he even paid the bill. I mean, he's a nice fellow. So we had a good time. And he's from Marshall, Missouri,
yes, Marshall,
right?
Missouri, yeah.
Marshall, Missouri. So I hope you've enjoyed a look at all his instrument fixes and setups, and I think they're all in really tip-top shape now. So thank you all so much for watching. Please click that subscribe button if you haven't done that yet, and a thumbs up is always appreciated. Thank you.